how many weeks do you think, if you had 2 hours a week with a guy?
Just two guys together.
Two guys. How many hours do you think it would take to share what happened to you, what you wrote down, why you wrote it down, how it looks in your life?
6 months.
Okay.
And you could tack on another couple weeks for each guy to share their story.
In the midst of all of that,
Yeah.
absolutely. And that's another line item. But I was just saying, if you did that in 6 months, which we've done over many, many months, what are the odds you'd have a friend?
Pretty high.
With God, there is always more. More love, more life, more freedom. Welcome to Zoe's Exploring More with Michael Thompson. C.S. Lewis once wrote, "Our Heavenly Father has provided many delightful ends for us along our journey, but He takes great care to see that we do not mistake any of them for home." Join me and the team as we explore the kingdom together, discovering the deep truths and offering encouragement for the journey. There is always more.
Welcome, friends and allies, to the Exploring More podcast. Michael Thompson hanging out with SJ Jennings, exploring the kingdom and talking about what we find, the very little that we know and very much what we're hopeful for. And This is a part 2.
That's quite the tagline.
Yeah.
Sorry, my phone is going crazy.
These are things we're almost certain of.
Right.
Pretty sure.
Things we've mostly experienced, but sometimes just kind of conjecture.
Still under investigation.
Yeah.
My dad.
Just a couple, like Sean would say, a couple guys that are passionate about the stuff they're talking about.
Yeah. My dad will
Doesn't
start.
mean we know what we're talking about.
He'll start some stories sometimes and say, "Hey, let me tell you this story. It's mostly true." He's known
such
for
an
that.
old guy thing to do.
He's known
man.
for that. It's so funny.
It's great. Well, I love those little old guys.
Some of my friends, say,
Yeah.
"Yeah,
My friends,
Your
if
dad.
I had any, would say that that's another one.
yeah."
Oh man, a great one the other day was who was it? Oh, it was Bill Weaver. I saw Bill Weaver not that long ago. And I said, "Hey Bill, it's really good to see you." He said, "My dad always used to say, it's better to be seen than to be viewed."
Old guy stuff. Yeah,
it's great.
There's dad jokes. We ought to start the old guy, because there's dad jokes and some of those can get pretty funny actually. But
They can.
the old guy stuff, better than the alternative.
Yeah, right.
All those one-line.
I woke up on the right side of the grass.
Yes, stuff like that. So
Leave one in the comments. Drop one in the comments
Oh.
if you know an old guy saying,
yeah.
yeah.
We'll get you. We'll get you on air. So, we were talking about, kind of post the Heart of Warrior encounter.
Yeah.
And just kind of encouraging men, and whether you went to encounter or not, hopefully this is still an encouragement about the rhythms and the practices and the what you say yes to. And I like what you said in the last episode too about and the things that you need to say no, or as we're in Lent, take a break from.
Not now. Yeah.
Yes, and push pause on those.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there's routines that are good, and there's indulgences that I enjoy, and yet it's okay to move in a different way or move in another direction.
Yeah,
so,
one I didn't get to share in the last episode, I forgot about it actually, was just came across the bow not that long ago. A story of a guy that was in a motorcycle training class, and we've ridden before, both of us, so know what I'm talking about when I say it. He was going through, doing just fine in the training class, and then came to the figure eight, where you got to ride the bike in a figure eight around cones that are not really all that far apart. It's pretty tight turns.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy would do great, and he'd get into that turn, and he would lay the bike over every time onto its peg. And the instructor finally noticed what he was doing. He was looking down at the ground as he's trying to make the turn instead of looking where he wanted to go. So if
That's good.
we have got to, in this idea of establishing rhythms, establishing, entering into disciplines,
Yeah.
we got to be focused on where it is that we want to go.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just going to, the thing in a motorcycle, man, if you look there, that's where you're going, is the point of the story.
Yeah.
So you got to really look where you want to be.
And it's going to be, friends, it's going to be okay when you fall out of rhythm.
When you lay a bike over, that's why you do it then, right?
But learning, and even learning from somebody who knows, that's a part of what this episode is about, is the whole brotherhood, the whole connecting with other men, moving in a direction, same direction you are, maybe in a different place or a different lane, but they're moving in this direction of intimacy with God, connectedness with God and each other, the things that seem to be really important in the kingdom. And so back to the rhythm thing, so there is this soul care and there is this maintenance to some degree of solitude and quiet and slowing down in the rhythms that are there. And then in this episode, we're talking about, who do you share that with? And I'm not I'm not a big fan of accountability. I'd rather have a good friend than an accountability partner.
Yeah.
And instead of making you be both, I would just say, no, a good friend knows that, and if you have some good friends, then they will, bring that accountability piece.
Yeah.
Or when we say,
if you will allow another man to know who you are,
right, which we're gonna
100%, then accountability will be the fruit of that relationship,
not the reason for it.
Right.
100%. So back in the rhythm of things, made me think of another thing. My dad, the man has rebounded, and he was a basketball player in high school and college, but he's rebounded more. I wish I had I'll take a penny for every rebound and the shooting things that we did through at least high school and college.
He was your rebounder.
Yeah,
I got you.
Yeah, there was, and you can shoot by yourself, but he would come out, he laid a slab, a concrete slab in the backyard, so we had our own hoop in the backyard, and it was fun, man. It was important, but. Anyway, he would back to old guys and kind of things they say. So he never explained it to me, but let me explain it and then I'll say it. But the explanation is every shooting streak, every hitting streak starts with one. So when we would play and shoot, he would take some turns too, and he was a good shooter. But every time, so he might miss the first couple, when he was kind of finding his range and stuff. But when he hit one, he would say, 1 in a row.
So great.
And I've said that on the court yeah,
man.
And not so everybody could hear me, but I would say that that's how it starts. You got to hit the first one. You got to make the first one, and that's 1 in a row. And so was talking with a person. Important person, friend that I care a lot about, who's struggling, and not a lot of friendships. And did you ever see Matt Damon's movie? We Bought a Zoo. There's a line in there where Matt Damon is actually the character's talking to his kids about how he met. He's talking to his son about how he met his mom, their mom, his wife. And he said, bottom line is 60 seconds of courage. Just 60 seconds of courage, right? And so this person I was talking to, they would like to, I remember some other friends now, it's all coming all over the place, but that when it comes to friendship, which is what we're talking about here, and being a friend, like our friend Craig Mayhew, Heidi Mayhew said to Craig, well, if you want more friends, maybe you should be a friend. It's that simplicity of that, but the courage to introduce yourself, the courage to say hello, to summon the courage to connect for just a minute and see what might transpire from that courage is so difficult. I think not only in a day when we found other ways to connect, whether it's leaving comments, texting, different things like that, but to really enter into some courageous space of vulnerability is a real challenge to push through and thing to overcome. I think that
it's hard to do when we've been hurt and betrayed, and we've got scars from making those efforts. It's I'm not trying to contradict what you're saying. I'm just saying we've all felt that before. Where it's like you put your hand out and they don't put theirs.
Right.
It's like
so
it's hard. It can be hard to overcome.
So that's what we want to talk about. Some more of what. So we talked about the rhythms of relationship, connecting with Jesus, and now the rhythms of friendship and how those are connected. So we'll be right back on the Exploring More podcast.
Every great adventure starts with preparation, a place to gather, rest, and equip ourselves for the journey ahead. In the same way, Zoe's Base Camp is here for you, an online resource library created to encourage and strengthen Zoe allies on the road to deeper connection, healing, and restoration. A base camp is a staging ground, a place to prepare for the next leg of your expedition. At Zoe, Base Camp is a resource library designed to help you and our allies gear up for the journey of the heart. It is packed with devotionals, discussion guides, and podcasts to help you deepen your relationship with God and one another. When you visit Base Camp, you'll find a growing collection of resources, each crafted to guide you and the men in your circles on your walk with God. Each series that you find below includes a devotion plan with supplemental video content from the Explore More podcast. The devotionals are designed for both personal reflection and small group discussions, helping you dig deeper into God's truth while building meaningful relationships. On the Base Camp website, you will see the various series that we have available. When you click on a series, you'll have the opportunity to download the PDF devotion plan and the discussion guide questions. This also includes an invitation to reflect in time alone with God. Share the plan with your small group and send out the podcast videos for members to watch on their own time. Then, when you gather, dive into conversations about what God is revealing to each of you. Base Camp is more than a resource library. It's a tool for building redemptive brotherhood on the road to experiencing more life, more love, and freedom with God. Start your journey today, explore Base Camp, and reach out to us at allies@zoe.org if you have any further questions.
Welcome back to the Exploring More podcast, and talking about friends and friendship and connecting. I appreciate what you brought up before we took the break about, there are moments that have taught us not to. There's experiences that we've had that have left us hurt, missed, broken, betrayed,
confused.
Yes,
all of that.
All of it in the context of relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And yet that is what we're actually going to try to promote in this episode. And back in the intro before the break, that's why it's going to take some courage for many of us to step out there again, to to be the one who goes first, to be the inviter at the risk of being rejected, right? All of that stuff is in this discussion. And so when it comes to SJ masculinity, we've said this a lot of times in a lot of spaces, and it's by, let me just say it. So what does walking with other men mean to us? One of the things that we believe deeply is that masculinity is bestowed by masculinity, and that being in the company of other good men is critical to becoming a good man.
Mm-hmm.
And not guaranteed, it's just a critical component. And that's not to discard or in any way have disregard for feminine. We need, there's something that femininity bestows as well.
Sure.
And that's
affirmation,
and
validation.
Yes. There's ways in which
Mm-hmm.
A mother and the feminine can bring good things to the masculine heart. Just like I believe that there's things that the masculine heart, the father, can bring to the hearts of the feminine heart. But masculinity bestows masculinity. And as wonderful as that sounds, I think that is probably the greatest indictment of masculinity, because there's not enough of that happening in the good and strong and kind direction. I mean, masculinity is bestowing things on the next generation of masculinity,
whether they're helpful or not. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I think in my own story, man, I think, my dad was around, but he was pretty disconnected and passive about some things. And I was that way early on with Stephen too.
Yeah.
Well, you'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Not helpful, but it's still bestowing something.
Yeah. And I think, let me take that very line that you're talking about, that very line, and let me change the whole scene. Okay.
Yeah.
So, because you say it one more time, just how you said it, just for effect.
You'll figure it out.
Okay. So, hey bud, I know this is hard. I'm watching you. This is really important that you figure it out. I could do this for you, but I need you to figure it out, because there's going to be some other things in your life that you need to lean into when they're hard, not feel, act, run, but rather
have
lean in.
someone else do it for you.
Yeah. So
I like it.
we good? You can do this. I believe in you.
Mm-hmm.
Same concept, very different. Very different way.
That's an initiating moment.
Right. 100%.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, of course, you don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
You're
14.
You never, yeah.
Yeah, or whatever.
Yes. Yeah. So I think about all the things that we needed help with. I like what you said too. It's a sad commentary that, but our dads were so busy, or they were so distracted, or
so taken out,
or it wasn't done for it wasn't.
Absolutely.
They weren't validated and initiated,
yeah.
And so back to this post encounter event. Here's a bunch of men who have been in a room, who have, kind of congregated into this common space of what an oriented man is. And then we got to, you can't talk about that without saying, well, then what's an oriented man do? But what is one, right? A man who is experiencing from God and with God where he is, the larger story that his story's in, the context of that, which is warfare, battle, and love story in the midst of a great battle.
Mm-hmm.
The second orientation piece is who he is. So identity. An oriented man's a man who is experiencing from God, learning from God, where he is, who he's not, as we talked about through the weekend, and the good that God's up to in his life, which is the healing and training and initiation and validation processes that happen as God gets a hold of a man's heart. A man gives God his heart and says, here, would you teach me the ways of the kingdom? Would you teach me how to be a man? And so with however thick the file is, however thin the file is, that's what the Father and the Son and Holy Spirit are up to, is freeing you up from the things that aren't good, that aren't true, that you might experience what is true and what is good. And that's going to be in the context of love so that you can then be turned loose into the world. So instead of the idea of that's just going to happen in some silo and I'm going to emerge out of the tunnel and into this space, we actually are put on a team. We're actually put on a team. As much as I can shoot by myself, I can train by myself, I can lift by myself. But sooner or later, I am on the team. I'm in the squadron, in the platoon, and I am in with other men who are in a variety of other different spaces.
Right.
But I think if we can encourage our men to say, okay, but this is what orientation looks like. And that's what we're shooting for, because the fruit of that is a man who's got nothing to hide, nothing to prove, and nothing to fear. And that's a man who's living like Jesus. Now we're back to the apprenticeship with Jesus that we talked about in the first session, which is a man who is dangerous for good.
Yeah. So there has to be commonality of training and a common goal.
Yeah.
For these guys to move towards.
We've talked about this. The Patriots have a culture. The Lions, Detroit Lions have a culture. The Marines have a culture. There's a way that you even talk about, what you're doing. So there's a culture to kingdom men. And there's some different dialects that aren't far from one another. I mean, we're not the only ones doing this, because it's so much bigger than some one ministry can tackle.
Yeah.
But we've learned from John Eldridge. We've learned from the Dennis Rainey's, the Tony Evans. We've learned from Graham Cooks. I mean, we've got a lot of professors and a lot of coaches and
learned
a lot of teachers
from each other.
And we've learned a lot with each other, because you've got to take it, out of the classroom and into the battle. And you have to work this stuff out kind of as you're going. And so masculinity is bestowed primarily through masculinity, and the opportunity to be validated and initiated by other men is going to require that team or that group of men to really understand they're all actually moving in that direction together. We've talked about Allender's quote many, many, many times. Find like-hearted kings moving in the same direction and sign treaties.
Yeah.
Be there for each other. And again, this stuff looks so good on the whiteboard. It's on locker room posters.
It's challenging.
It's really and it feels true, because it is true. That's why we resonate with such things. But the practice of it is quite challenging. So here's the question I want to talk about. What does this cost? The rhythms of brotherhood. Yes, the things that before we even get into the benefits of all of that.
Right.
What does it cost?
Time, for sure. I mean, it's going to take time.
It's a major commodity with men. I mean, we're working, we're providing. We've got, depending on where your kids are in their ages. I mean, we were just talking with Josh about an invitation to get away with us to Camden,
Camden Yards.
Camden Field in
Yeah.
Baltimore to watch a ball game. And yeah, the challenge is, can I afford to get away? Yes, it's the baseball game, right? But it's us.
Right.
We invited him to come along
It's the
because it's
traveling
him.
and yeah, man.
And we'll go. Well, back to my dad. We'll make some memories.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's what he used to say all the time when we'd go into some of these men's circles out in the South Dakota with the pheasant. Let's make some memories today. Let's make some memories.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, but the cost. Time is probably I'm not ready to say it's the biggest one, because we just talked about, man, it can be intimidating for a lot of men to be with men.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not time. It's something else, right?
Well, I would say that, you know, time is it's the most important commodity that we have to offer. It's the greatest gift we can give someone else.
Spend or invest.
I heard you mentioned Rainey. I heard him say that. That's one of the greatest gifts that we can give to someone else, or the greatest gift is our time.
Yeah.
Because we don't have an endless supply of it.
Right.
Even if you think you do, you don't.
No.
So
No.
it really is an important thing. But also, it's the time, making time for getting together in these, you know, band of brothers that we're talking about, these groups of men, and journeying together. And then it's the investment of time to deepen your friendships. Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
being together does not even guarantee this at all.
I've been on the Zoe team coming up on 10 years. You know, and I think back to the first 5 years that I was on the Zoe team, and our relationship is in a much different place than it was then, because we've invested the time. Yeah. So yes, it's making the time and the space for the gatherings, and then the time and the space for the growth and the depth of relationship. Yeah,
and the process that we're actually talking about. We'll simplify it: overcoming and becoming. Right, overcoming the many things that weren't good, and becoming good, and being in that space of rhythms with God, and practicing that, but also bringing what we would call show and tell, bringing things to the circle, to the truck ride, to the fire circles, and having conversations, because you can go to all those things and not engage.
We've seen it happen.
Not say anything, or not even. It's interesting how I find, especially in the circles that we run with faith, it's amazing how many guys will take an opportunity to teach rather than to share some of their experiences and their story. We're just so trained to tell me I need to tell you what I know. I need to sound like I know and understand, as opposed to let me tell you what I've experienced.
That's a big one, man. That's a huge one.
And so so I think of these guys that went to Encounter. Yeah, you could stay in a circle with. I mean, circle, man. If it's a line, that's okay. It's 2 guys. Doesn't need to be 8.
Right.
But to just to share your journal.
Mm-hmm.
I'm how many weeks do you think, if you had 2 hours a week with a guy?
Just 2 guys together.
2 guys. How many hours do you think it would take to share what happened to you, what you wrote down, why you wrote it down, how it looks in your life?
6 months.
Okay. If I was going to just...
And you could tack on another couple weeks for each guy to share their story.
In the midst of all of that, absolutely. And that's another line item. But I'm just saying, if you did that in 6 months, which we've done, over many, many months, what are the odds you'd have a friend?
Pretty high.
I know it's not guaranteed. I'm not trying to promote a recipe, but I'm saying that's the cost, time, and in the rhythm of it. And, you can be upset about all the guys that aren't there. I've been that guy. We invited 10 and 3 guys showed up. Run with the 3. Andy and I were talking off. Yeah, he said, man, we had our group the other night, and it was just, there's only 6 of us there, but he went on talking but that's because they have 8 and 10 and sometimes 12, but it's about the depth of, and the 6 guys that were there, the stories that he was talking about, the 6 guys that were there, they benefit.
Man, it's so interesting the way we look at things, isn't it? We talk about it at the weekend where, there's your true self, and you bring your true self, your false self to every interaction with another person.
Right.
So there's these 4 possibilities: true self, true, false, false, true, false, right? And any interaction between 2 people. And 3 out of 4 of those are what usually people say is bad or not good. And really what we want to look at is, no, 3 out of 4 of them have a chance. 3 out of 4 of them are good because there's a true self there.
Yeah.
And I think when we talk about it, that just makes me think of it. There were only 6 guys there. Well, we could also say there were 4 guys that really missed out.
Yeah, how we Yes, I see. I get it. Yeah. And there's 4 guys that we missed so much. They weren't there, but this is what happened. Right. Yeah, I think that's a great insight. But deep friendships take time, and they do take a certain kind of investment. Meaning, and I don't know how to articulate this because some people just don't. Bless them, they haven't been encouraged or taught how to befriend someone. So, if you're the only one talking and you get into week 3 and you're still the only one talking and dominating that line, that one-on-one time, he doesn't want to be, you don't care. So this is tricky because
look up Brian Regan Me Monster.
The Me Monster,
on
right?
YouTube.
But I think about the listening.
But guys do what they're taught. Is your point, right? If that's what you were taught,
and your brokenness is the interruptions. I've got a wife that has she has a 5-yard flag for you're interrupting me. Go ahead, Yes, finish.
Mm-hmm. Does she literally have a flag? She probably should.
It feels like it.
Her birthday's coming up.
It feels like a penalty.
I might get her a flag.
It feels like encroachment, offsides. So another 5 yards, right?
Yeah.
But she's right. But to practice and learn these rhythms, the rhythms of friendship involve listening, involve time. So, but again, you can give time, but if you're interrupting and dominating, that's you're not just stunting the growth, you're choking.
Choking it out.
The possibility of friendship. And so I don't want to ignore that, and I don't want to make it indicting. I'm saying that there's a practice, there's a way things work, and there's a practice to this. Asking questions.
I love that this is, again, right after the encounter weekend, because there's a simultaneous process that really has to happen. Like, you have got to engage in the practice of healing and training for your own heart.
That's so helpful too.
And then engage with other men, right? Because they will help you continue that journey.
Yeah.
Right. And the opportunity to share. I love the idea of going back through the journal and sharing what God shared during an encounter weekend, or another weekend you went to. If you went to Promise Keepers 20 years ago, break out one of those notes from that. I mean, and go back through it. But the point is, it's not like we're trying to say you've got to get healed and be like Jesus
before
and then engage in a group with other men. It's going to happen simultaneously. And the way it's really designed to happen, faithful are the wounds of a friend, iron sharpens iron, right, is to happen in that relationship. The healing opportunities can come from the tension of a good relationship. There's hurt is going to happen.
So,
right?
So here's what happens, and here's why friendship often doesn't survive those first weeks and months. So when the interrupter's interrupting, or the talker's dominating, the
hider's hiding.
What happens to the other guy is he just would rather not confront.
I see.
He would rather not mention. So he either just continues to die this slow death, or he just stops returning calls, or he says, "Hey, SJ, I can't make next week," or I can't.
I got a conflict.
So I think the opportunity to learn some relational skills happens in relationships, and the courage to say, "Hey, can I talk to you about something?" And man, I love what we were setting out to do, but I just need to bring something up that's hard for me. That is why a lot of friendships don't happen, because even when you bring that up, it may not get better. It
may not go well.
It may get worse.
Yeah.
But you're already dying. You're already not enjoying it.
Right.
You're already saying
it's worth a risk, is what you're saying.
And that, I think, is a that risk is worth the man card. It's worth the merit badge for most men, because they've just learned to not press in. I mean, I think my codependency, and we all have some of that to some degree. No, you don't want to bring up something uncomfortable to your new friend. And you sure are. If he's an old friend, you already got your list of
ledger.
The ledger.
Yeah.
So all of that to say, I think that a friendship that hasn't hit some of those is going to stay in probably the shallow waters, even if it's going to survive, as opposed to the ones, and this is a line that we don't like, but we need. Can I talk to you about something? When men can arrive in a small space of 2s, 3s, 5s, you don't want to call that guy out in front of, but I'm talking about some of the more intimate circles. But if you have a prickly gift to give somebody and you don't, that's not very loving. That's not really kind, even though it's going to, you know that it might upset them, it might hurt them, but that's back to the faithful or the wounds of a friend. Like, look, I want to enjoy our time, but it feels like it's so lopsided that, can we revisit some of the parameters and expectations, because you think everybody ought to know these, they don't.
No.
And so to enter into the rhythms of these friendships that we're talking about is a tricky business. And that, I believe, is why so few men have good friends. One is the time that it requires to invest, and then two is, what does the practice look like? How does the exchange look like? We've said in our notes, you have, yes, the stories. One of the costly things, the price, I would say, of knowing and being known is vulnerability, sharing in some level of vulnerability, right? That this
the risk of being known, the risk of being shamed, right, or experiencing shame. It's a big one, man. There's no doubt, because
Yep.
all of us, you don't have to be on the planet very long to have experienced being vulnerable with someone, even as a child,
Yeah.
and it not going well.
Yeah.
It not being safe, your heart not being cared for.
Yeah. So we're kind of getting into this idea of what are the ingredients of this? What are the characteristics of this? Vulnerability, listening, right? I saw this funny meme the other day where trying to have coffee and listen to your friend when one of your favorite 80s songs comes on. And so it was Toto or something was the music, and Africa or something. And he's listening, and he's just kind of trying not to hit the and he wants to go away from you.
And the guy's poured his heart out.
Oh yeah,
right? Yeah,
and
yeah.
he's just dying. You know, he's being impeded. His listening is being impeded.
Yeah.
So, but I think. So I think the listening, the engaging, and the listening guide, practicing attunement, practicing eye contact. I mean, these are all parts of characteristics, ingredients, and even skills and ability.
Don't say that ain't nothing.
Yes,
right? Like either whether you say it or you say it because the guy's telling you about how awful his 2 wisdom tooth removal was, and I had 4 taken out.
Yeah,
Don't do
which to my what do I want to say about Robin and these flags that I get? Sometimes
We'll see whether or not we have to edit this out.
Sometimes my interruptions are going to be clarifying questions.
Yes,
but
not always a statement or
no. But to her point, not well timed.
Right.
And so
you're trying to help her be better.
Yeah.
I don't know why she doesn't see that.
I know.
Kidding, Robin.
So I think these characteristics of listening, vulnerability, kindness, attunement, even clarity. What a great characteristic of a conversation.
Clarifying questions are really good.
Did I hear you? Are you still talking about your mom?
Mm-hmm.
Or hey, I lost you there.
How old are you when this is going on? Yeah, stuff like that. Just
a little bit, to kind of nudge things forward and help you stay engaged. I get it. So I think the opportunity. How do you pursue these? How do you prioritize these kinds of relationships? I think that even though the courage it takes to start them, SJ, that's not the hardest part.
Right.
Right. The hardest part is in these moments where, I may have to point out something. I may have to share something that concerns me, even about our friendship.
Yeah, and I want to say, man, there's a time for that, and your second meeting is not it, generally, right? Because you're just getting to know each other.
Yeah.
You might just need to wait and see how things play out.
Yeah.
And wait for the time that's appropriate to say, hey, man, I've loved getting to know you. We've had all this time together. I just wonder if I could ask you a couple questions about something I noticed. You don't lead with that, right?
That's why I think the journal workbook's great. Here's the form.
Yeah.
Here's the format, man.
Yeah.
Just take turns.
Mm-hmm.
If you're taking 5 minutes, or 10 minutes, then you probably ought to let the other guy have 5 to 10 minutes to take his turn before you interrupt.
And that's so tough about it, because our Wednesday morning group that we do, we went into a breakout session and a guy was taking 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And I was like, he kept saying, I'm taking too much time. I'm taking too much time. But he's on a gurney, gushing blood, and it's like, bro,
he needs to talk.
You need to take the time.
Yeah, he needs to be able to share, but not at the expense of the group every time.
No.
So that's where it gets tricky.
Yeah.
That's where it does get tricky, and I think the as you enter into these times of downloading and sharing, having the mission. So I think what I want to say is, okay, one of our good friends isn't working with us and working here anymore. It's more challenging to now move at that friendship because for 6-7 years we were day to day. So there is something about working together, and if not working together, being on mission together.
Yeah, that's
a whole other element of this. And so those are helpful to friendship, and I think that has to be the missional part of why we're getting together. The mission is each other.
Right.
The mission that we're going to share is, let's get to know each other. Let's share our stories. Let's share our answers to these questions. Let's share our notes to these things. And
we've said it many times. Like I've heard you say it. I've said it. A guy we're going somewhere, whether it's to go fly fishing or it's to go to the encounter to work all week at the weekend.
Yeah.
I'll just ride separately. No, bro, you're not riding separately.
Right. Yeah.
Because the ride
defeats the purpose. Yes.
Exactly. It's not. Right. We're not going there just to go and work at a weekend.
Yeah.
That's part of it.
Yeah. If we're going to lunch 10 minutes from here, that's I'll meet you there.
Right.
I get it.
That's fine. But if you're talking about 3-4 hours down the road, it's
huge
way better. You got to be in the truck, man.
Huge part of the mission is that time and making arrangements.
And we're talking about us, but it could be any group of guys, right? If you're going to watch a ball game as a group, because that's another point we want to offer up, do stuff outside of your group together.
Yeah.
But ride together to the game instead of everybody driving separately.
I'm watching the guys in our eastern and western circles that we're doing nationally. Man, I'm watching some of those guys, Ben Shevchuk and Greg Frederick and Don Jenkins in their groups. These are guys that don't necessarily live in their zip codes, but they're in their inboxes. They just keep stirring this stuff up by initiating and by engaging. So it's a huge part of what we're asking is for you to be a friend is going to require some level of engagement, and then as you get to know somebody, it's kind of weird if you meet him and his birthday's the next week. I mean, you don't know a ton about him, but it's his birthday. Treat him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Get him a gift card. Get him,
right. Exactly. Bring him a bottle of Dr. Pepper or a bottle of bourbon.
You're great at that. You're great at that, by the way, on all fronts of gift giving. But I also, you would expect that the gifts deepen over time and making memories and history spent together. That is, so when there's anniversaries, when there's birthdays, I want to wrap up because I know we have to, but I do want to wrap up with Stephen's 30th birthday. One thing I want to say, I saw you and felt you, but have not honored you with what I saw and felt.
What was that?
Because of the things that were going on, and just I could tell how it was deeply. You showed me a video of him when he was a little guy. You were reflecting on, oh my gosh, my kid's 30, and even though I got some of that, I didn't mine deeper. I didn't say, tell me some more about what you're feeling. So I say now, tell me more about how his 30th birthday was impacting you. What could you say in a few things?
Yeah. So So we're in this. I'm trying to figure out how
Where to enter in.
Far back I have to go. This book found us probably 3 or 4 years, maybe 2 or 3 years ago now. It sounds more morose than it is. It's The Gentle Art of Swedish Death Cleaning. So a woman who's in her upper 80s wrote a book about getting rid of your stuff and making sure that your kids, if you have them, or the people you're leaving stuff to, know where you want your stuff to go after you're gone.
Okay.
It's this whole process it's a part of life, right?
And it's apparently popular in Sweden.
Apparently it's a Swedish thing.
It's a Swedish thing?
I don't know why it's Swedish. She's not even Swedish, I don't think. But so anyway,
crazy.
So anyway, we enter into that process, and here's the big box of VHS and 8mm camcorder tapes. And I'm like, man, I haven't looked at these in a long time, because they go all the way back to when Sherry and I moved into our first house together. That's 1992.
Yeah, I remember.
So,
I remember those
we
technology.
had the giant thing on your shoulder. So that comes up, and I'm like, well, you know what? I don't have to pay a guy to digitize all this stuff. I can figure this out, which is part of it's going to be on my tombstone.
You figured it out.
I can figure this out. So I figure out how to do it. Now I figured out a way to do it, but you can't do it like at high speed. You actually have to play the tapes. So they record real time. So sometimes I'll set them up and just let them go. And other times I sit and I kind of watch them for a while. And we were in the middle of the series on shame. And I'm sensing, as I'm watching these things, I know what was going on in my life and my story while I'm watching videotape of Stephen's 7th birthday, or Stephen playing football when he was 10, or that. And I'm looking at myself on the camera, and I'm experiencing some shame about my story, right? Like, I wish I knew what I know now, because I would have engaged him. And those were some of the most wounding years in our relationship for Stephen. Like, I wounded him a lot in those years, from when he was about 6 to 10 years old. So I'm watching those things, and we're doing the series, and I go into this process of remembering what the difference between a regret and a holy regret, right? So what does that all have to do with Stephen's 30th birthday? Well, I'm feeling all those things in and around. His birthday was February 27th. I started the process the week before. I'm feeling and going through and experiencing all of those things, this regret to, man, and I mean, I was even diminishing and calling myself names, what an a-hole I was, I mean, just, and then going, wait a minute, no, I knew what I knew then. I didn't know what I didn't know. Doesn't mean the behavior's okay. It just means we've done a lot of work to redeem that time in our lives. So now I can look at it with this holy regret. So that is overarching the whole experience of my kids turning 30. And he and I have done a lot of work in the last particularly 5 to 6 years to reach a milestone age of 30 years old. I remember turning 30 and thinking it's a milestone age. When you have a kid that turns 30, it's a different kind of a milestone, But being thankful for grieving the things that need grieving in regards to that earlier part of our relationship, celebrating the work we've done,
the restoration,
the restoration
things,
that's happened,
recovery,
and then celebrating his birthday, kind of all
That's
wrapped in
lot.
one, man. And 5 days before Stephen's birthday is the day my mom passed away, February 22nd.
Okay,
so there's all that in there too. So I appreciate you asking, and the opportunity for us to engage in this almost as this is how it works moment.
Wondered,
but there was a lot swirling around, and still in many ways is.
So here, that's helpful, and I get it. What I regret is, and why I even bring it up, because what I wish I had had the capacity to do, SJ, in that moment, and the moment was you were showing me this clip.
Yeah, I think Stephen was
on the rocks,
4 years old,
and you were showing me, and you wanted. I knew then, and you wanted me to really, I think, stand with you and see this. This was important, and my capacity was just not in alignment with your need.
Yeah.
And so I kind of made that note and thought, as I was preparing a little bit, ask about, where is it?
Mm-hmm.
Ask about Stephen's 30th and what all that meant, because it deserved some time.
Yeah.
The fact that the cameras are on and all that is fine, but it just deserved something more than I gave you at that time. And yes, I've had one of my 3 hit that 30 mark, and how did that happen?
Yeah.
What in the world?
When did
I
get
remember
old
when
enough?
I turned 30.
Yeah,
I may not remember when I turned 9, but I remember when I turned 30 and what was going on in our worlds, and here we have a kid that's 30. So congratulations.
Yeah. Thanks.
On hitting that milestone. I'm sorry I wasn't as near as I needed to be, but I want to be, and say that
man.
you have, and I, as much as I would love to attribute the I've watched Stephen go after you and go after this as well, and I think that has been incredible that the two of you have said, yeah, it wasn't good. You've apologized and say, but what do we want to build going forward? And so I think that's, I was at the wedding. I saw how proud you and Sherry were of him, but I saw how proud he was of you guys. And that was really a beautiful, it was holy.
Oh man.
And so good. So we'll see you next time on the Exploring More podcast.
We hope you have enjoyed this episode of Exploring More. The landing page for this podcast is zoe.org/podcast. That's ZOWEH.org/podcast, where you can find the show notes and various platforms to which we broadcast. You can also find us and the Life of More by visiting Zoe on YouVersion Bible app, Right Now Media, our Facebook page, and Zoe on Instagram and Twitter. Remember, with God there is always more, and you were made for more.